David's soul sort of loomed large in my early life. I remember watching Starsky and Hutch with my dad. I went to Tiverton High School, and at lunchtime the kids would go uptown and we walk up to Tiverton and do some shoplifting and basically hurl each other into cars and things, and we'd sort of reenact the opening credit sequence with this funky music playing in our head. I also remember his foray into sort of popular music. He did this song, it was quite schmaltzy, but it's very catchy and quite memorable. It went, "Don't give up on us, baby, we're still worth one." It was kind of quite beautiful, and I can remember it now, probably 35, 40 years ago. So a kind of massive basket of gifts that he was given. Some people squander those gifts, but he kind of was constantly using them to good effect. So the first shoot in 2000 was at Channel 4. As luck would have it, often it's the case, something just falls into your lap. It just so happened that he was wearing clothes that worked really well with one particular location that I felt drawn to. There was a sort of pipe that was painted white, and it was against this sort of concrete wall that was a light brown colour, and it worked really well with his clothing. And it was to his credit that he went along with it to stand on this pipe and improvise. I think probably because he was an actor, he was able to sort of improvise and be playful, and that's why the pictures are kind of have a lightness of touch and work really well. The second shoot was in 2002. It was in Coventry. It was at the Belgrade Theatre. He was performing in a play by Ira Levin. The play was called Death Trap, and he was very I was very struck by his professionalism, but also his generosity, because he gave me loads of time. He liked the pictures that we'd taken before at Channel 4, and he was very generous. And this shoot was very much an exercise in lighting. So I sort of had a couple of lights where I lit him from behind. So my subject was standing in front of me, and then I had two lights slightly behind him. And so therefore in the middle of his face, it was quite dark and sort of quite dramatic. I'm not a big fan of stamping people with technique, but sometimes you can use lighting and it's quite effective. After that, I used a huge softbox called an Octa. It was the biggest softbox you could buy. I would stand in front of it so the light would leach around me to light my subject. And it was very flat and almost like copy lighting and very flattering. And finally, as is often the case when I'm photographing people in theatres and locations like that, it's fun to play with the mirrors and photograph people in the dressing room, because I think there's an energy and a tension, because as people are getting ready, sometimes, the atmosphere is sort of electric. After the second shoot, he got in touch. Periodically, I'd sort of hear from him. We gave him some prints, and he suggested on a couple of occasions that, when I was in London, let's meet for a coffee. And sadly, I never did. Life got in the way. Things were always too busy. I've never been one to be interested in networking. I hate the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's much better to sort of do your work and maintain a distance. I mean, quite often when you're photographing people, it's important that you retain your independence and you dispassionately be true to yourself and the way that you see a person. If you become too friendly, then it sort of changes the dynamic and you sort of feel an obligation, or you feel bad if they don't like the pictures. The takeaway for this is that quite often if you're preternaturally gifted, you have these kind of qualities that people are drawn to. Your personality doesn't evolve, but his did, and that was to his credit. He was a nice person, and I was sad to hear that he had passed.